Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good. I got my glasses. All right. Best Boys Center Ice podcast. Post Pittsburgh trip.
Yep.
I can't remember what episode this is, but
A million.
So yeah, okay. I guess. Hey, no, I got. I need these. Yeah. All right. Welcome to.
You ready for it?
Yep. Ready. Welcome to the Best Boys Center Ice podcast. I'm Barry Besse, along with my son Carson. We've been doing this now for a little over a year,
Since last December.
but we've been talking about doing this for 2 or 3 years. And finally, we decided we love the game of hockey so much that we're going to do a podcast. And it's fun doing a podcast with my son because growing up, Carson was a basketball fan. He was a good basketball player, but turned into a hockey fan a few years back and likes following the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm originally from Edmonton, so I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan. And we sit here, we talk about our teams.
Yep. Chatted up.
We chatted up about the week that was for our teams. And we also take a look at some of the other things going on in the NHL. Now, the show is on our YouTube channel, Best Boys Center Ice Podcast. And thanks to the Refocused Radio Network and Shemaya Reed, you can get us on there the day after the podcast airs, also on Spreaker.com. Now, also on the Refocused Radio Network is Shemaya's own show, I Am Refocused Radio, Rudy Campos Jr., and the Sweep the League, and of course our show and many, many others. But we just love doing this. Carson just got back from a whirlwind weekend trip to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about how that went, and we'll take a look at the Oilers and how they did. Do you want to start with your trip in Pittsburgh?
You go ahead because I went first last time, so we'll just kind of take turns here.
Okay. Well, the Oilers went 2-1. Yeah, pardon my voice. The Oilers went 2-1 on their last 3 games since we did the last podcast. The first game was a very historic game for the Pittsburgh Penguins, as for the first time, I think it was 5 years.
It's 2019.
Since 2019 that Pittsburgh beat Edmonton, and it was a very dominated game by Pittsburgh in the first period. They got all 4 of their 5 goals in the first period.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Oilers did come back, but not all the way. So that was a great win for the Penguins, and we'll hear more about that. And then the Oilers, they went back on the road in Chicago, started out again really slow.
Yes, they did.
Against the Blackhawks, we're down 2-0.
Trap games like that that seem to kind of get some teams.
And they got trapped, but they did manage to come out and win 4-3. And then last night in a game that was very intense, Pacific Division rivals, the LA Kings, and it was in Edmonton. It was like the Oilers are playing 7 of 8 games on the road, 1 at home. That was the home game, was last night, and they won 1-0. And the goal was on a 4-on-4,
and the second too, right? End of the second, pretty much.
Yeah, it was with about
a minute left.
A minute left in the second. Connor McDavid, who celebrated his 28th birthday yesterday, got the goal, and Stu Skinner came up with some great saves. Darcy Kemper, the goaltender for
that was
LA,
a great goaltending match.
Was great. But in the end, the Oilers did what you need to do against a division rival. You beat them, but you beat them in regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And now the Oilers are 4 points up on the Kings in the Pacific Division, and for only the one, I think 5th time this year, the Oilers went with 7 defensemen and 11 forwards.
Who was the odd man out?
It was Stetcher. No,
but Skinner wasn't playing, right?
Skinner, yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Jeff Skinner, yeah.
Jeff Skinner was the he was the scratch. So The Kings are really good at that. They are the
They're-
masters of playing 7 and 11.
Mhm.
But last,
They're a really good team. They're a great team.
they're you know what I'm surprised by? I don't know if I'm surprised by it. How good their defense is this year.
Mhm. They have a very good defensive core.
You know, they
Mhm.
really know how to shut.
They shut you down. They know how to shut you down.
And
They make it hard to get anywhere.
You can't get you got to be very strategic about going into
Yes.
the zone.
Yes, you do.
But the Oilers got the one goal. That's all they needed. Stu Skinner got that's his second official shutout
Not
of the
sharing
season.
it. With...
Not sharing with Cal Pickard, and his 6th overall of his career.
Okay.
And he is now on the season 9-0 after losing a game.
Wow. Okay.
He hasn't lost back-to-back games since November.
That kind of
this year.
surprises me a little bit.
It does surprise me a little bit.
I mean, you look at last postseason, especially, and when he struggled.
Yeah,
and it's weird to see that, you know, after struggling and losing a game, that he's able to just come back and win the next one.
He's 9-0.
That's what people don't like about him, is that his inconsistency.
Yeah, because he was in net for the Pittsburgh game.
Yeah, and that was something else. So we'll get that though in a minute.
Yeah, so Stu played really, really well. Let's see. Okay, coming up, a big game. Actually, this week is going to be a tough one for the Oilers when you look at it on paper. Tomorrow in Minnesota against the Wild.
Wow.
Thursday, back-to-back in Colorado against the Avalanche.
Oh yeah, that's a TV game too. That Avalanche game.
Saturday they're in Vancouver against the Canucks, and then Tuesday they're back at home to Washington. So
that's going to be a good game.
They've
too.
got a pretty
daunting
intense
schedule. That's. I mean, okay, Colorado, one of the top teams in the division. Same with Minnesota. Vancouver's up there, and Washington #1 in the Metro. That's a very. I mean, this would be a good week for y'all to get 6 or 8 points out of that.
Well, if they play like they played last night against the Kings, they should come out with some points. But and the Oilers, even though their home record is really good right now, they're a really good road team.
And let me ask this: so I didn't watch that Kings game because I was asleep after the trip. What do you think they did well in that game? Because obviously 1-0 seems low event, but what was big in that game?
You know what they did, and I thought about this when I was watching the game last night. They are normally out hit by teams. They've got the lowest amount of hits in the NHL, so they're always getting out hit by opponents. They out hit the Kings.
And that's a weird
night.
team to do that too, as well. Because I feel like the Kings have a lot of guys that can really throw the body.
I think besides that, the defense really tightened up. It was like the Kings could only get one and done.
Yeah.
And like they couldn't get any sustained offensive zone time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Oilers out hit the
was it by a big margin too, or was it
it was like doubled.
Okay,
it was doubled.
That's big.
So that's what I thought, but when you look at the Oilers in the last few years, you think 1-0, they would have never won a game like that.
No, and sometimes you just, especially that's the game that you feel like would be having a lot of goals in it.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of big offensive guys on both of those teams.
Yeah,
and that's very weird to see that kind of game between those two teams be 1-0.
And I seen Warren Fogle play for the second time against the Oilers, and I think he's going to be a great player in this league because he's their guy. Like no matter what they say, he's their guy.
Yeah. Do you miss having him there, or do you think that it was needed that he left? And
No, I do. No, I do. Of all the guys that the Oilers lost in the offseason, I think that's the guy that probably hurt the most.
Yeah,
because he's going to a division rival too.
Yeah, and that's going to come back in the playoffs.
Now he's
he's going to be really just getting an extra gear to try to beat y'all.
That's the week that was for the Oilers. Now, like we started talking about, beginning of the week for the Pittsburgh Penguins was really good as you beat the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, and sorry.
Yeah,
got you there. But that was nice. You know what? First time in 5 years, 5 long years, and that the goal amounts for both teams in those games in the last 5 years since 2019, I believe, was like 40 to like 18 for y'all. So y'all just wiped us clean. There were many shutouts in those games between the two, and we found a way. And you know what? I wasn't expecting the start of that game the way it went, 1, 2, 3, like felt like before the first commercial.
Mhm.
You know, we got the first one. I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, that's nice to get the first one, but you know, got to keep playing
Mhm.
because this is an Oiler team that can really. And they got another one, and it's
Mhm.
like, wow, like just and then the Hayes goal too. Like
Mhm.
it's just like, but that first line was the key in that
Oh
game.
yeah, it
Oh
was
my,
huge.
like you can see how they controlled the play
Mhm.
when they were out there. Really big win for the team to get that done. And y'all came back a little bit in the end of the second. We're lucky that y'all didn't do anything more in the third. I mean, y'all played well in the third, but just couldn't get any goals.
Yeah.
Ned was
Ned was on his head.
I got to talk about that save that he made on Draisaitl, or not Draisaitl, on Hyman, the first before the Draisaitl goal. Did you
Yeah.
see that? He like rolled on his back,
Yeah.
did the extension, and got it with his blocker. Unfortunately, that Draisaitl was there to clean up the mess there. But what a game! I mean, that was a really good game overall. Great energy from the Penguins. Great energy from the fans. That was a crowded arena, and I mean, to win a game against a team you haven't beaten in a long time feels good, and it definitely sparked some confidence. Which is why I'm surprised this weekend went the way it did for the Penguins.
Yeah.
Obviously, we mentioned last week on the show and the past couple of shows, I was heading there this weekend to watch the two games: Saturday against Ottawa, Sunday against Tampa Bay, and just did not go as planned. That brings me now to this year. Unfortunately, I'm 0-6 for the Penguin games I have been to this season. I've yet to see them win once. The Ottawa game is really disappointing. They just played so bad and choppy. A lot of power play opportunities. They had 6 or 7 in the game, but they were kind of split up a little bit. They just weren't able to do anything. Ottawa was all over them. They were faster. They came out striking quick. They had 3 in the first. They got a shorthanded goal too at the end of the first, which really stung. Ned played really bad in that game. Questionable calls during that game. Ottawa scored their 5th goal, which again at that point didn't really make a difference, but was saved by Ned, and it was underneath, between his pads, but underneath his legs. You couldn't really see it, obviously, from where you're sitting, and the ref just didn't blow it. He was just sitting there, and usually I feel like that's how it goes. If you get trapped right there, they just kind of sit on it. They're not actually sitting on it, but they blow it dead. They did. They just let it keep going on, and Stützle came around the net. Nobody was in back behind Ned, and they called it good. Kind of frustrating, but they definitely didn't deserve that game, and it showed with the result. Ottawa only had 5 shots the last half of the game, and it just didn't matter. They were just all over it, and that kind of was disappointing. And then you go to the Tampa game, and a tale of 2 games. They way outplay the other team, and they find a way to not win the game. Took the lead early in that game, 1-0 in the first on 15 shots in the first period, which I thought they had probably that could have been like a 4-goal period, like the Edmonton game. They literally had 3 or 4 grade A chances that just didn't go. Tampa at the end of the second had a 2-1 lead, and they only had 9 shots, and we had 24, 25. We tied the game in the third with 3 minutes left. Just a horrible turnover. Nola Chari in the defensive zone was trying to just kill time for the first line guys to get on the ice. And he tried backhanding it to Carlson, and he whiffed it. And Kucherov was right there and took it, and breakaway goal, score. So one of those instances, too, where Jari, again, like many times in his career, can't make that big save when you just need it to be done. I get it. That turnover shouldn't have happened. But you're getting paid the big bucks. Make the saves like that when they count. Most of the time, or some of the time at least, but he never really does. And that ended up being the it for the game. Tampa got 2 empty netters. That's the game. Disappointing weekend because a lot of fans, and myself included, feel that this weekend could be one that keeps them out because now they have so many more games played than everybody else. Within the matter of a few days, they could actually be last in the division.
Yeah.
Because if Islanders win just 2 more games out of their next 3, New York just wins once, the Penguins are last in the division.
Yeah. That's, it was because it's so ironic that the Edmonton game, I didn't get to see the third period because I was
And they did a great job holding that game.
And I was thinking, man, this Pittsburgh team, if they can do that to the Oilers, what are they going to do to the rest? And then I was, following the game on Saturday and on Sunday, and it was just like, that's just 2 different teams. That was 2 totally different teams. And I don't know, you're right, but we're just beyond the midway
Yeah,
point.
I mean, a lot can change. That's obvious, but even 2 out of 4 points would have been big if they
Mhm.
could have beaten Tampa. Okay, you respond from a loss, but yeah, just the Ottawa game really is the one that stings more because that's a team that was below you in the standings. Not very long ago, the Penguins had a 3 and could have increased it to a 5-point lead, and now they're behind them by 1 point, and they still have 3 games in hand on us. So, you still got to claw your way through. There's a lot of games left. Not yet necessarily panic time, but they got to win a lot of games.
Mhm.
Yeah, just disappointing, especially after the effort against you guys. If anything, that should have been the game that we didn't win the whole week.
Right. That's
And
what
that's
you're.
the one game that
Yeah.
we won. I thought after that game, oh my God, like this is great. Like they have confidence. They just beat a
Mhm.
team they haven't beaten in years, and just Ottawa came out. I mean, they seem to almost play. I don't want to say down to teams because Ottawa's not a bad team. There's not many bad teams in the league, but they don't play it as hard.
Yeah.
They're bobbling the puck. They're not skating fast. They're not trying. You could just sense there's no effort. They're just wanting the game to be over with.
Right.
Play with some fire. Get back in the game. And the Tampa game was interesting in many different ways. There were so many things that happened during that game. By far the strangest hockey game I've ever been involved in, ever watching in person.
Mhm.
So first off, what happened before the game, about 3 hours or so before puck drop, Michael Bunting gets involved in a car accident outside of PPG Paints Arena and is taken out of the game. He can't play. He's not injured, but they just, I think of all this situation going on, probably taking care of everything they need to take care of, not going to play. Okay. Philip Tomasino comes back in the lineup. Gino gets put on IR for 1 game. He's coming back tonight, which I'll talk about in a second. But yeah, then during the game, something that's really gone viral on the internet, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, is a lot of discourse was going on in the arena between fans in the lower bowl behind our defending side in the second period. A puck deflected out of
I
play
did
in the
see
netting,
that. Yeah.
and the second period was stuck between the netting and the glass. So this teenager, 13, 14 years old, goes to the glass, shoves it a little bit, and breaks the puck free, and the puck falls. Well, this elderly guy in his 70s, 60s, 70s, takes the puck and gives it to his granddaughter, who's an adult, later teenager, early adult, so older than the kid for sure. And people just start giving it to this guy because the kid worked to get that puck down, and he should have been the one to get the puck. Well, I'm sitting in the center ice. Obviously, I sit at center ice for that game, and this is going on behind one of the goals. And it's just they're just giving it to this guy, and you're like, "What's going on?" Like you can't see it from that far away because we weren't watching that. We were watching the game, so everybody's heads start turning towards the fans because you're like, "What's going on?" You hear them booing, and then this kid stands up, and they start cheering for the kid. And then as soon as he sits down, they start booing the guy again. Well, the guy's just the gentleman himself, or gentleman himself, just starts talking to these people and like being obnoxious. So it gets to the point that one of the players, girlfriends or wives, went to, I guess they have like a section for family that they maybe keep some like memorabilia, merchandise, stuff like that. And she gets a puck for this kid, probably a game used puck or a signed puck or something, and gives it to the kid. So she goes down herself as she's escorted by a fellow fan who was sitting higher up, and then one of the ushers. And she goes down to the kid and his mom, gives the kid a puck. They exchange hugs and pleasantries because, I mean, it's very nice. And this guy gets up and he gets actually kicked out of the game because he's causing so much discourse. Oh, and they're just really giving it to him, booing him. Like it's crazy. You would think that the team was down like 5-6-0, and they're booing this guy. And he comes out and he's just at the end walking out, flipping the bird to everybody.
Oh my, really?
Yeah. So, crazy story. Definitely. And the worst part of this all was that while that was going on, as soon as while all this was kind of happening, Tampa ended up scoring a goal on us. So you wonder if there's something there with the players. I know as professionals they can be, that's a bit of a distraction because you're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
You're human nature. You want to know what's going on. But that was crazy. Tons of views on social media and reads on the internet because of that. Just a crazy thing. Overall, just a wacky game. I think that game would have been a lot different if Bunting would have played. I mean, we outplayed them heavily, but he would have made a difference. We did get a power play goal in there, which was nice. Kevin Hayes got one. I got to see a sit point. That's always on the sheet. Raquel scores again, 22nd of the season. But disappointing that they just couldn't get it done this time. I'm just waiting to see a win from these guys at some point this season. But I've got a few more tries left. As far as the team, they're it's so sad because they're like switching problems this year from last year. Last year, their goaltending was great. They were getting the saves when they needed to. They couldn't score a goal. They couldn't buy a goal if they wanted to. Now they can score, but they can't stop the puck. They're last in the amount of goals they've given up, the amount of goals they give up per game on average. They're pretty good as far as how many goals they score a game. They're well above average, well above halfway mark. If they get this kind of goal scoring last year, they make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're setting themselves up right now to be in a situation where they miss because they can't keep it out. And that part of it can be very frustrating because I don't want to see them miss it. But if they keep doing that, they're not going to, because they can't be giving up all these goals and expecting to make it. They're not going to. They got to win those 2-1 games, and they can't do that. They're one of only, I want to say, 3 teams in the league that have yet to record a shutout this year. Ironically, one of them is Washington. Washington's not recorded one yet. And then I think the other one's like San Jose or something. But we're the only team, one of the only 3 teams that haven't recorded one. Something's got to change. Tonight, this lineup is going to look a lot different for the game against Seattle, which I'll get into in a second. That's going on right now. Gino's back after being out for a few games. Unfortunately, he wasn't in the lineup when I was there, but you'd rather him be ready to go and be ready to play. He's going to slot back in. Thank God Matt Nieto is getting taken out. I don't think I've seen a guy on the ice that's, I don't say more useless, but just doesn't really contribute more than he does. He doesn't hit. He seems to not be very offensively aware. He's just kind of doing cardio. And it's unfortunate because guys like Pugliarvi getting shafted when he's been doing a good job when he's there, just for veteran guys.
Yeah.
But he's finally getting taken out tonight. Gino's back in, looking for a big night against Seattle. I mean, again, they win the next 3 games or 2 games about 500, which they haven't been all year. So that'd be a fine for them. I mean, but this week's, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, the next many games are very winnable games for this team. Honestly, out of the next 9 or 8, they could potentially win 7 of these games if they really play well, like they did against Shell. But tonight against Seattle, and then we head on the road for a lot of road games. I think 6 straight on the road. We start on Saturday against the Sabres. Last time we played them was at drilling a 6-5 overtime win where Gino recorded his 500th goal. And then we head to the nation's capital to play a team that we've really done well against over the years, is Washington. Obviously, a game against the Caps is a rivalry game. Huge if they can win that. And then we start a California trip next week, which will be very interesting because we start in LA on Monday. At that point, I don't know what their schedule looks like, but if anything, that might be one of their first games back since everything's going on there with the fires. So it'll be obviously a very big game for them. They're going to want to win in that arena. Penguins are going to have to play hard after beating them earlier this year in overtime. And after that, I believe they go to Anaheim, Seattle, San Jose, take care of the West. These are a lot of games they can win. They can pull themselves back in, but they need to get some stuff done. But the trip itself, great time. Great to explore the city, eat some good food, be around good people, walk around, see the things. It was cold up there, but I enjoyed the weather. I'll be back again next month. I'm trying to make at least 10 Penguin games this year. I'm at 6. I can definitely do 10. I'm going to see them next month, play against the Rangers and Washington. So divisional the games, all the importance. Then I'll be going to Dallas when they're there. And I'm trying to squeak in a trip to Denver to see them play the Avalanche when they're there. And I think that would complete my season for the games. Obviously, if they make the playoffs, that would be a must go for me. But I'm trying to see at least 10 regular season games, and I'm 60% of the way there.
Yeah. And while you were there, of course, the Steelers were playing in the wild card and didn't do so well either. It was
bad
funny
weekend for Pittsburgh sports.
It was like you posted, now I'm going to go and join my fellow Pittsburgh.
Yeah, the citizens. I sat in one of the restaurants there and watched the game with some people. Obviously not the result, just terrible weekend for the city and the sports teams. But, I'm just looking for a response from this team. How are they going to respond this week? I think 4 to 6 points is definitely a must. You need at least 4. If you can get 6, that'd be great. But, it's far from over. Again, a lot needs to go their way, but there's still plenty of time for that to happen. All it takes is some of these teams to just lose a few games, and you're there.
You're right back in it. Just a couple of other things I want to talk about, and I've wondered about this. Okay, the Four Nations tournament is coming up the 12th to the 20th of February. Canada, U.S., Sweden, and Finland. Now, when they looked at this, I know that there's an issue with the Russian players because of what was
that's
going on
all
in
going-
Ukraine.
Yeah.
But should they have had a world team of one of the teams? Because like Germany's not represented. Some of these other countries that have like great hockey players aren't being represented.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's a question. I really think what they should do next year, obviously, this is going to be a great tournament regardless. Going to, number one, generate a lot of revenue for the league, but it's going to generate a lot of fan interest because this is going to be a lot more interesting than All-Star game formats. All-Star game formats, much like the NBA, have gotten very boring over the last few years where they don't really try, not effort. The fans go out there and pay their money. They watch these guys screw around and not really do anything, which, I mean, I get it. You don't want to get hurt. Don't want to risk yourself. But now you're playing for your country.
Yeah.
Now there's pride there. Which country is the best? What I would like them to do maybe next year or think about is having a poll from a lot of league personnel. So coaches, management, maybe some like media personnel, and draft. Let's say, okay, let's make it an even 4 teams. How many players are on a raw? Well, let's think. How many
it's
players?
20, 21.
Okay. So yeah, do on a roster, maybe you got 20 guys, 4 teams, top 80 players in the NHL, voted by personnel, media, management, all that, and draft. Have a draft. So generate 4 captains for these teams. 4, I mean, obviously 4 guys that should be captains of their own squads. So probably McDavid, Sid, probably look at Ovechkin, guys like that. Have them draft teams for this and be a best on best world tournament. You would have guys from all different countries participating in this, best of the best in the league. I think that would make this format so much fun. Regardless, we'll see what this 4 nations looks like, but I think that's a great idea that they could implement to make it really competitive. But nothing at the end of the day speaks pride like playing for your country, and that's what all these guys are going to do.
And that's what they wanted. They wanted to do the whole country thing.
Yeah, because
it's nation pride.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to see the regular all-string anymore. The only thing they could do to make that interesting, if they did, was instead of doing divisional, doing conference wide, and winning conference like the MLB gets home ice in the finals.
Yeah,
but then again, you'd get, and I'd also think that whole thing of picking a guy from each team is kind of a joke. I don't think that's right.
No.
You know what? There's some teams, unfortunately, like it's not a dig, that just don't have those top gun guys. There's some teams like Edmonton who have 3 or 4 of them. Look at Florida. Florida's got like 8 or 9 people in this 4 nations tournament that could be top players in the league. But best on best doesn't get better than that. Not you have a guy that can get 40 or 50 points in a season and then another guy in the same division getting 100. That's not really, and not to dig on these guys, are still good players, but going to be fun. I'm wanting to buy a jersey. I've got an eyes on a Carlson Sweden jersey because I love Sweden jerseys, but nonetheless, going to be fun. For that tournament, who do you have winning it? Let me ask you that.
Well, of course, I'm thinking when I look at the lineups, I'm going strictly by the lineups. I'm not going by.
Yeah,
but I think Team Canada is loaded. The U.S. is a good-looking team too, but Team Canada has so much power. It's just like you get Nathan McKinnon, you get Sidney Crosby, you get Connor McDavid. You get all of these guys. And it's like, well, who's going to stop these guys? Like, really, who's going to stop them? But then. The Americans could come out, but then you get a team like Sweden or Finland who could be the dark horse.
Yeah. See, like for me, I want Canada to win. Obviously, I want mainly because Sid's going. I want Sid to do well and play well, but I've got the U.S. winning that thing. I think Connor Hellebuck's the best goalie in the world, and you've got Ottinger too.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that's unreal. I mean, you've got the two best goalie like countries are them in Sweden, because you've got Markstrom for Sweden, which is going to be ridiculous. But I think the U.S. is going to win. I think they're just super loaded as well, as much offensively as Canada. But goaltending, they're by far the best goaltending country as far as who they got. I mean, Canada's got Aiden Hill
and who else? Montembeault from Montreal.
Yes, But I mean, Hellebuck and Ottinger. Come on. I think that's going to be tough. I mean, those guys are beatable. Obviously, there's a country that can do it. It's definitely Canada. I mean, you're going to have one line getting McDavid, and is Hyman on Team Canada, or is he? Not?
I don't think he made it.
Okay,
he was scheduled, but I don't think he made it.
Well, you got McDavid coming up with you, and you've probably got Braden Point. I would put Braden Point with him, and then you got line 2. You got McKinnon, Sid, and Marchand coming at you. Come on, that's gonna be
that's gonna be
nonetheless going to be really fun. I'm actually going to want to watch this tournament. Going to be very interesting too. A 2-week break for this thing. So there's a 4-day break between the last day of NHL games and when the tournament begins. So you wonder, how is this going to affect the rest of the seasons? Because you're going to have some teams, okay, for instance, that like Florida and other teams that have more guys represented, and other teams that maybe don't have anybody represented, and they're getting the rest. I think the whole postseason for the NHL is going to come down to who comes out after that break. Some teams might come out lazy and get no rep. Some teams will come out and be like, all right, let's go. Let's get this thing done. But going to be a fun tournament. It'll be sad not to have NHL for 2 weeks, so I'm going to be ready for it to come back.
Me too.
It ends the 8th, comes back the 22nd, which is when I'm going to be up in Pitt. But excited for this tournament. We'll be watching the games. We'll be covering the tournament, no doubt. I mean, that's going to be that's a can't miss event for sure. And it's going to be nationally televised, which I hope it gains a lot of attention from fans of other sports that aren't familiar with hockey. NFL season will be just wrapping up because the Super Bowl will be over. NBA, not too much going on around that time. Might be in the All-Star break for them too. So this is going to gain, I think, some big media attention. I really think, and could be something that gets a lot of people watching it, because you've got the best players in the world playing to represent their countries. Obviously, there's some that should be there that aren't because of standings with their country. Like Russia's got a lot of great players that can't play, but it's going to be great. I'm excited. Just can't beat these games. It's going to be close, not tight, intense, very intense. Games. I'm excited.
And the last thing I want to talk about, speaking of the Four Nations tournament, it's usually about the time when we talk about the All-Star break. Is like that's when people go. That's kind of like the playoff measuring stick.
Yeah, if you're in at that point, typically, usually 80-90% of the teams that are in at that point stay. We talked about this last week. Teams that are already, for the most part, I think the teams, especially in the East, that are already top 3 in their division are going to make it there. They're going to stay. It's going to be the wild card. The East race is always going to be a lot more intense because there's so many other teams going for it. But should there be concern when you're there? Yes. If you're out, absolutely, because you're hoping on multiple other teams to struggle when they're playing hungry and they want to win. They want to get in. There's a lot of teams that have been struggling that have a chance to break droughts. Columbus can get back in the playoffs after especially everything that happened last year with Gaudreau, unfortunately, passing away. That they've got something to play for. Ottawa hasn't made the playoffs, I believe, since we knocked them out in 2017 when Chris Kunitz famously eliminated them. Sweet memory. In Game 7 double overtime. Even the Rangers coming back up from the depths. Teams in the West as well that are looking to get in, squeak in there. It's going to be intense. I think this year's playoff race is going to be the best one yet because there's so many teams fighting for it. And no holds barred. You're going in there. You're working to make the playoffs. Yeah. One thing I really want to talk about, I was going to mention this about regarding my trip. I want to just ask you this. When you go to arenas, okay, especially like when you went to T-Mobile, when I was in Pittsburgh, sitting in my seat, I would sometimes just think about all the great things that have happened here. I mentioned the Kunitz Game 7 goal, double overtime. Imagine being in that arena when that happens. Or Vegas, you went there, winning the Stanley Cup on home ice.
On home ice, yeah.
We've been to Dallas. Plenty of great moments there. Overtime game winner against Nashville to advance to the second round years back. Do you ever go to arenas and just think about the moments that have happened here? That like what would it be like in there when that happens? Because it's crazy being in an arena like that. It's so loud in there, and yet sometimes it's not even full. Like when I was in Pittsburgh, I found it loud, and it was probably 90-95% full. You're going to those playoff games that are at least over 100% jammed, and you've got loud fans.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about that?
Oh,
These
yeah.
moments that have happened in this arena.
Sure. Again, I go back to my experiences, and all of the 5 cups that the Oilers won were in the old Northlands Coliseum, and even though I never got to be in that building for the Stanley Cup final, but I've been in it afterwards. And it's like you sit and you go, especially you look up and you look at the rafters and you go, look at all the Stanley, and like it happened right there. And it was just like, you could just sit there and you could just for a second imagine Gretzky
Like what-
we're going around the ice with the cup. in
What
his
you
hand.
would do to like snag a ticket and go back in time. I just like to think about like relish on that kind of stuff because certain things at points where teams look down, like for us right now, we're kind of going to the end of our rainbow, but it's cool. Okay. Like when I was on there, I got there early for the games. So I like to just kind of sit and see my vantage point for the games, what it'll look like at this side, ice this side. Looking up last weekend, okay, I go up there, I see 91, 92, 09, 16, 17 cup banners. Like, wow. Like, I'm in an arena, okay, where they've raised 2 banners and, crazy to see playoff runs have happened here. Some great moments that have happened here. Look at the banners up in for retirees. Lemieux, Yager's up there. It's crazy to see that stuff and be like, God, this was here. Like, I posted on Facebook, as crazy as it was just a picture of a parking lot, but where the old Civic Arena was, one of the most unique buildings arenas ever to probably stand, where the Penguins won 3 Stanley Cups, and started the legacies of Lemieux, Yager, started the legacies of Sid, Gino, Fleury. That all happened there. And it's crazy to just see that. And, it makes you jealous. You wish you could live in cities like that because I do go into games all the time. But it's cool to see those things when you go to different arenas, even like Winnipeg, the whiteouts, the playoff whiteouts. No, that happens here. And you can see how. It's cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Well, we're going to wrap things up for tonight. You can catch the Best Boys Center Ice podcast every Tuesday night, right around 5:45, 6 o'clock. And then the next day on the Refocused Radio Network, thanks to Shemaya Reed. We're also on Spreaker the next day. And then you can catch our post games for both the Penguins and the Oilers on TikTok. And we do that
for now.
for now, as long as TikTok is still
Another
still
5
on.
days.
Yeah, 5 days or whatever it is. But you know what? We want to hear from you. If you want to message us outside of the show and just say, hey, you know what? I'm we got some Calgary Flames fan. Well, I don't know if there's too many up there. We got some Predators fans. We got some Rangers fans. We've got some Avalanche fans. Let us know how you think your team is doing a little bit beyond the midway point. What do you think of the Four Nations tournament? We want to hear from you. And then you can join us live every Tuesday night here on the Best Boys Center Ice podcast. And well, that's going to do it for us for this week. And as Carson loves me saying, in the meantime and in between time, everybody have a great hockey night.
You have to say that every week.
Every week, just for you.
Thank you.
Look, we have a producer.